let's play a little buy, sell, or rent with some NFL teams. And our producer, Brian Ortega, has produced and come up with a list of NFL teams that he'll go ahead and ask us if we want to do one of those three things with them.
I will jump into buy, sell, or rent. So these are teams that you are buying on at the beginning of the season, that's your team, or you're selling, just like don't have any faith in them, or you're renting. You're just cautiously optimistic on this team. So the first one I want to present you guys with is the San Francisco 49ers.
So will you buy, sell, or rent? JVT, I'll give you the honors to go first here.
Okay, so the term sell sounds super negative, but I'm going to use it. I will sell. Only because, and what I mean by that is I think they're kind of overvalued coming into the year. I think the win total is somewhat high, especially when you talk about where it's shaded. I think that this is, by no question, the weakest trio of quarterbacks that Shanahan has had in his tenure there in San Francisco. And while we might think in the betting market, who loves Kyle Shanahan, he is the most respected head coach out there. I would say, outside of Dable, I think they're one of two head coaches that if they were for some reason not able to coach a game, the number would move. Whether it's a point, whether it's a half point, it would move. So I think I think all of that is baked into this a little too much. I do think that when you look at their defense, specifically like their interior defensive tackles and other spots, there are some pretty weak points on this defense that, maybe we're kind of glossing over. And not to say that they're going to be like a 9, like a 7-win team or something like that. I just think that they're being priced as this extremely elite team, that it's one of two teams in the NFC, and they're one of them. I think they're a little bit closer to the pack than maybe the market would think. So I'll say sell.
I'll take the opposite. I'm going to buy the 49ers just because, like you said, like Kyle Shanahan, I know you're shaking your head, but Shanahan.
You're in. You're blinded by Kyle Shanahan.
I'm blinded by Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. And I'm blinded by this roster, man. Like, this is like quarterback aside, which I know is the most important position in the sport. So it's like hard to just say quarterback aside, but I'll say it, man. That's a really, the skill guys are awesome. The offensive line does have me a little bit concerned. I mean, Mike McGlinchey, they lost in free agency, but he wasn't one of the greatest right tackles ever. So I don't think it's like the biggest loss ever. But I think on the interiors where I'm concerned. But on the defensive side of the ball, as long as Bosa's ready to go by week 1, I have zero concerns about the San Francisco 49ers on defense. And yes, they lose D'Amico Ryans, now the head coach of the Houston Texans, but Steve Wilkes is still a pretty good defensive mind as well. There's a reason why he got a head coaching job is because of what he was doing on that side of the ball. So now that he goes back from being a head coach to now back to being a defensive coordinator, he can kind of hone in on that side of the football to where I just think that when you have a really good defense like that and a really good head coach, I just feel like your floor is so ridiculously high to where it has to be an absolute cluster injury on both sides of the ball for you to fail. And also, if they do have injuries at quarterback, they're one of the teams that's most uniquely fit to withstand that. We saw it last year. They have a lot of quarterback depth. So I'm going to buy the 49ers.
For what it's worth, the model has it as a 5.7-point win on the road against Pittsburgh in week 1.
Whew. Man, I kind of like Pittsburgh in that game, but
JVT, what would you call your model?
The model says what the model.
Would I call my model?
Yeah, what would you call it, like a cool modeling system? Like, this is JVT's model.
Oh, like Derek Carty's got like Bat X or whatever.
Yeah.
I got to think of that. I'm not entirely sure yet. I mean, I guess, it's got to be a play on like JVT.
Maybe tweet at me JVT on Twitter for the audience might be open to.
Maybe we can go with the easy, like John Von Model.
John Von Model?
Yeah.
That's good.
The Model VT.
Yeah, You're so good at that.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Model VT.
Ooh, Model VT. Oh, man, that's why you guys are over there. You guys are great. Right. Okay, so moving on. So we're buying and selling on the opposite sides. I like it. Okay, so moving to the next team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Buy, rent, or sell.
Man. I think we're going to have the same answer here. Kind of want to rent the Steelers?
Yeah, it feels like that.
So here's my thing. Would you agree? I think I wholeheartedly believe in this defense being really good. Yep. I think in today's NFL, if you're a team built around your defense, you're starting behind the 8 ball because just defenses in general already start by the 8 ball, and you generally acquiesce to the offense that you face. So, if the Steelers face the Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to absolutely shut them down. No, so whatever. That's the premise there. I just don't know at all what Kenny Pickett in this offense is going to be in any way, shape, or form. And there was not really much explosiveness to it last year when Pickett was there. You need a quarterback in today's day and age that can throw for over 200 yards with regularity. Was not Pickett down the stretch, but he graded out well by PFF standards. So, I think there's still something there. I just don't know what to do with them, but I know I really do like one aspect of their team, and it's them defensively. So I'll rent and just see what this team's going to be.
Yeah, I'm going to rent too. To your point, I think the defense has a chance to be elite. And I liked Mike Tomlin as a lot as a head coach. I think he's really good. And I'll read this to you because Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network draft analyst, but he also does NFL stuff, does games for the Chargers on radio. He was at Pittsburgh Steelers camp recently, and he tweeted out 5 takeaways. Now, the first 3, it's like Tomlin's a stud, practice was physical, and he did say that Darnell Washington is enormous and that he looks pretty smooth as a mover as well. But here were the last 2 nuggets that he had. He said George Pickens' hype is real. He has everything it takes to be an elite wide receiver. Burst, body control, hands are plus, plus, plus. And the last one, Kenny Pickett is thinking fast and looks very confident. He has some Burrow traits. He'll take a big leap in year 2. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say he's got some Burrow traits. Like, I think that's a little bit too much of praise there. But I do like the fact that, like, hey, like, this is now an offense that's centered around Kenny Pickett, year 2 of Matt Canada's system. And say what you want about Matt Canada. I get it. Like, he's not everyone's favorite play caller. But at least there's some continuity there for a young quarterback, which is what you need early on in your career. I was liking that offense at the end of the season last year. I wanted to see them in the playoffs because I thought they could have given like a Buffalo or one of those teams a run for their money there. The skill guys are there. The offensive line I thought was playing better at the end of the season. They have a really good coach. The defense is awesome. Like this is a team that I'm renting, but I'm kind of like leaning towards maybe looking to buy at some point because like the division is tough, which is why I'm only renting. But if they were in a weaker division, I'd be fully buying the Steelers.
Sure, and like to your overall point as well, the defense can be good enough here where you just need to give me average NFL offense, and we can be a decent team. But I'll also say this, and there's a long history here, so he deserves it. But I do wonder how much, like, the win total of 8.5 and all this, so much of it baked into it is just, did you know that Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season? You know what I mean? Like, I think there are times where we ignore flaws because, and the market does this at times, because there is a strong track record, but it doesn't really tie to much. Like, every team is unique. Tomlin's an awesome head coach, and he shouldn't go anywhere or anything like that, but it's just, I wonder if we mask over the flaws to look at this. You know, when you look at, like, the margins, you know, a perfect season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I still feel is like that 9-8, maybe 10-7 range, right? And when you're talking about a win total of 8.5, it's not much room for error, but there's a lot more room for error on the other end when you're talking about a losing season of any degree.
Especially if the other 3 teams in the division all, like, reach their potential.
Sure.
Because at that point, it's like, dude, like, someone has to be the 4th best team.
Right.
You know? So it's like there's only so many wins that can go around.
And really quickly, just look at the other 3 teams. When you look at, if you're stacking them up in terms of what they can be offensively, like you said, if the Bengals, Ravens, and Browns are all what they can be offensively, that gap already is massive between Pittsburgh and those 3, just from that perspective. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's something that's going to be tough to climb out of.
Yeah, especially from a quarterback perspective. Pickett's not at that level as the other 3 guys, especially if Watson gets back to who he was.
And everybody looks good in camp.
And also that, too. But, hey, he's going up against a tough defense, though. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a signal for Kenny.
That's a good point.
Brian Ortega, what's the next team?
All righty, so last one, and this might be nice, like leading into our next guest, and that is buy, sell, or rent the Miami Dolphins.
For me, on this one, I'll go first. This was never buy. Never buy because of the volatility of the quarterback's health.
Yeah.
Like, it can only be rent, and it's rent from a game-to-game standpoint. Like, I think Tua is one hit away from maybe never playing football again. I will never buy into the Dolphins from a future standpoint to win the division, win total, none of that. Like, it's strictly game-to-game, week-to-week. I like the Miami Dolphins as a team, and if the quarterback proved that he could stay healthy, I would love the Miami Dolphins. But we haven't seen that. That's not reality. So it's, for me, rent 1,000%.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, maybe even more towards sell. Because the problem here is, too, you know, we could talk about the health and the concussions and whatnot. When you look at Tua's season, after Week 10, when he played Cleveland, and, you know, he comes back, and, you know, like, there's a stark drop-off in play. Yeah. Like, if you look at, like, PFF grading, turnover-worthy plays, that really spiked against, you know, at the tail end of the season as well. Committed 7 turnover-worthy plays in his last 3 games. The turnover-worthy play rate's really high, too. And there was just some really high, like, some really high highs, but some really low lows. And like you said, the volatility of the play, the volatility of the availability, the fact that I'm not sure how good this defense is really even going to be. I think that's why I'm kind of high on New England in the grand scheme of things, like in terms of make the playoffs, bet them week to week ATS wise. I don't know if there's that much of a gap between a team like New England and Miami, and you know what I mean. Like, you could find yourself with New England as a 3rd place team and pushing for a playoff spot. So I would agree. I think I'm going more towards sell.
Like I don't disagree with you selling that. I'm more so on the renting side just because I like the potential upside, and I do like Mike McDaniel. Like he annoys me with some of the decisions that he makes.
Right.
But I do like him as like an offensive mind and as a play caller. And for the Vic Fangio hire, like we've said a lot about it, but still I think we're underselling Vic Fangio because he's one of the best defensive coordinators in all of football, and that's a big coup for that Miami coaching staff to get him in the fold. But I just can't get there with the QB. Like the QB hasn't proven to stay healthy, and if the QB gets hurt, this whole thing unravels, in my opinion, for Miami.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.